We have been exploring together for this entire month, living with presence, living with peace in a chaotic and changing world. And if you've just joined us part of the way through this series, I created the series in response to a question that I had asked of our community a couple of months ago. I had asked the question, is there something that's heavy on your heart? And I offered 5 or 6 different choices of, are any of these things that you are struggling with? And what is it that you'd like me to speak to? And the 2 most popular answers came back: peace in a chaotic world and living with presence in a changing world. And so I merged those for this series. And we began with the idea of stillness, how important it is to cultivate that stillness within. Then we talked about the soul and nurturing our souls. We talked about the idea of a firewall in our computer systems that helps to protect the integrity of that system, and how important it is for us to nurture and care for and protect our souls. And then we took a look at our heart, the unshakable heart, how to cultivate an unshakable heart, especially in the midst of either personal change that we're experiencing or the collective change that we see around us that may be troubling to us. And then last week I talked to you about ways to future-proof your faith, to deepen into your faith. And today I want to wrap up with the theme of peace, how to be a peaceful presence in the world, and what do we mean in unity in our spiritual tradition when we talk about peace. Today's daily word was in celebration of the holiday today, Palm Sunday. And when we think about Palm Sunday, we might be inclined to think of it in a sense of triumph. It is the day that we say Jesus rode into Jerusalem, rode in on a donkey, on a colt, fully aware, we're told, about what was to befall him. And yet he rode straight into his destiny, straight into what was about to befall him. It was a time of tremendous political and chaotic unrest, if you think about it, a time of great social unrest. And in a way, we could look at his moving into Jerusalem, going straight for it, almost as a demonstration, if you will, of being a peaceful presence in the midst of a really personally troubling and challenging time. I think the very fact that we have the story of him riding in on a donkey, a symbol of humility, is an invitation and perhaps a reminder to us of the kinds of qualities that are important for us to embody during times of difficulty and times of change. As Unity students, we are committed to the practice of peace. We have ways and techniques that we practice to help us maintain a peaceful center. And we also know that peace is not just that internal state, which is foundationally important to everything else, but peace is also an action. It's also a way that we move into the world. And that's what I want us to look at a bit today. It's easy when we think of peace to just think of that quiet stillness, and it is that, and it includes and transcends that. Peace is power. Peace is power. We often mistake peace for passivity, but it is not passive. A quiet oneness that detaches from the world. That is not what we're talking about when we're talking about the kind of peace that can move the world to righteousness, that can move the world to justice. In the face of chaos, peace is actually a regulative force. In the midst of chaos, peace is a regulatory force. It's a way to change the status quo. Many of us in this room are familiar with and have studied the story, for example, of Mahatma Gandhi, of his practice of ahimsa, which is a practice of nonviolence, which is a way of saying the practice of peace in the midst of very chaotic, very troublesome, very potentially dangerous times. And that in the embodiment of that peace, the full, complete, deep embodiment of that peace, that presence, that energy is a power that can break through the hardened minds and hearts of an oppressor. It's not an easy path, but it is an effective path. Peace is power. We often mistake it for passivity, that feeling of detachment, but it is not that. In the face of chaos, it's actually a force for good. It's the calm center within us, that allows us not to be blinded by the anger and hatred around us. Take that in for a moment. Peace is that calm center within that allows us to see clearly and not be blinded by the hatred or the fear that we see around us. It gives us clear-minded thinking. And in times like these collectively, as well as in times of strife and struggle in our personal lives, we need to be able to see clearly. We need to not be blinded by, by fear. Would you not agree? We make better choices when we are choosing from a place of calmness, choosing from a place of peace. Instead of seeking peace from the world, we are about bringing peace into the world, starting right where we are. Why is it that in unity communities all around the world, we love the peace song? Why is it that we love it? It's aspirational, yes, for sure. I think one of the reasons we love it is its emphasis on beginning with me. Let it begin with me. It can't just end with me, but it's got to include me in whatever reactions, whatever relationships, whatever places I find myself. How do I be that beneficial presence of peace? That calm center allows the surgeon to do his or her work delicately, carefully. That calm center allows somebody to march in a protest and not get hooked into the anger of it, but to embody the peace of what they are standing for. And that's the second point I want to emphasize here, that there is a big difference between being against something and standing for something. A big difference between being against something and standing for something. When we stand against something, our energy is defined by the thing we are against. Take that in for a moment. When we stand against something, our energy is defined by the thing we are against. It's as if we're becoming the very thing we hate, the very thing we don't want to see in the world. When we bring the energy of againstness to it, we are amplifying it. I'm not saying that I do not understand why we would be against some kinds of things in the world. But just because we understand the humanness of why we would be against does not mean that it's the most effective way. The against energy eventually burns out. Big difference between being against something and for something. To be for something is to stand for something. I'm listening to a book right now whose title is Stand. It's a relatively new book written by Cory Booker. And wherever you are on the political spectrum, there's value in the points he's making in his book. It's a 10-chapter book in which he is speaking about standing for very particular virtues of vulnerability, truth, compassion, how important it is for us to stand for something. How many of you remember being maybe taught by a teacher or a parent, if you don't stand for something, you will fall for anything. fall for anything, standing for something. I believe that we in unity stand for peace. I believe we in unity stand for justice. I believe we in unity stand for love. I believe we in unity stand for equality. I believe we in unity stand for compassion, for human kindness, for dignity, for civility, for fairness. Is there any one of those that you disagree with? I don't think you probably do. We stand for some very noble ways of living and being and conducting ourselves. If you're against something, you are identifying with it in a way that you really probably don't want to identify with it. It's a big difference to be against a king versus for sovereign democracy. Big difference. Big difference. What are we for? Interestingly, as I was working on this lesson, I received an email from one of our members. And I'm going to read the email to you, and then I'll tell you how it turned out for her. Her first name is Denise, and she writes, "Good morning, Wendy. I thought I would share with you what positive unity teachings have done for me. I'm attending a No Kings protest today and decided that my poster was going to be all about what we want and not what we don't want. I refuse to stoop to name-calling, insults, or disrespect, as is being shown by our current misguided leader. I've also been thinking a lot lately about all the so-called evil in the world and have come to the conclusion that it is there to teach all of us love, acceptance, and compassion. How are we to respond in grace and unconditional love if we are not challenged to do so? We are continually being given opportunities to grow and need to remind ourselves that our teachers can be very painful in their manner of teaching us what we need to learn. I am looking forward to coming together with others today in ways I would not have if not for our common goals." This is a person who by nature would not ordinarily participate in a march like this. She did because she found a way to stand for something. Her poster had the word prayer written on it vertically, and then she treated it as an acronym. And for each of the letters in prayer, she wrote, or I said prayer, I mean peace. Her poster said peace. And the words were pray, engage, acceptance, compassion, and power. And just this morning before service, I got an email back from her saying that she wanted to share with me the reaction of the people around her to her poster. And she said it was a very positive reaction to her poster, and that she made a point of sharing and talking with the people around her who commented about the poster, that she was committed to standing for something, not merely standing against something. I think that deserves a round of applause. Because she became a teacher in that moment. She became a teacher in that moment. She had the opportunity in that moment to speak about virtue, things that I think all of us, who of us would not agree with praying, engaging, accepting, compassion, empowerment, right? To say, I stand for these things. It may be hard to get there. We may not have all the answers on how we get there, and we may not agree on how we get there. But I think there is far more common good than what some of us might be getting from our media feeds and the things we read and the things that we listen to. When we get down to what are we standing for, what do we care about, there is so much more overlap and commonality to that than what we perhaps are against. Does that make sense? Another point to being the kind of peace that moves the world is this idea of an internal no and an external yes. An internal no and an external yes. Have you heard the phrase that we must be outraged to be engaged? I'm hearing it quite a bit, that you've got to be outraged to be engaged, and I disagree with that. I understand being outraged about things in the world. And I can see where outrage can initially lead us to take some action, to get out and do something. But I think that outrage is a short fuse, and that it easily and quickly burns itself out. Whereas a commitment to what it is that we are for has longevity, has staying power, gives us the moral and noble strength to move toward what is right and just for the well-being of all. Think of the metaphor I used a few weeks ago of the lighthouse. The lighthouse has that core that is unaffected, that steel-encased core, that is unaffected by the winds and the waves and the brutalness of what weather can be sometimes. The lighthouse doesn't scream at the storm and scream at the waves. It continues to shine its light out of its solid core. Our spiritual practice, I think, is meant to inspire us to continue to shine our light out of our centered and solid core. And that means in each of the conversations that we have, just like Denise's choice to participate in the march, that's not everybody's choice. That may not be what you agree with or want to do. But the point is, she knew why she was doing what she was doing, standing for something. And so while her feet moved on that pavement along with others, there was something, I think, much more important that she brought into that experience, which was not anger, not fear, but a commitment to rightness, a commitment to a more peaceful way of being. Does that make sense? Which do you think in some ways is harder to do? I think in many ways that is harder to do, which perhaps is the very reason that the great Mahatma means great soul, I'm going to say the Dalai Lama, I meant Gandhi, that he was able to move a nation by moving people to be in that core of non-resistant peace that absolutely eventually got to them, that broke through the bitterness, that broke through the hatred, that broke through the unfairness, and broke through in a deep and powerful and lasting way. Doesn't it sound like I think the word is oxymoron here, to say we're going to fight for peace? Right? I'm going to fight for peace. How many of you remember hearing that Mother Teresa during the Vietnam War said she would not march against the war, but she said, if you ever have a march for peace, I will march with you. I'm paraphrasing, but that was the message that she gave. I think she may have been one of the very first to give such a message like that, to march for peace, to walk for peace. Think about the powerful visual and probably the long-lasting personal impact that the traveling monks had when they made their journey, what was it, like 2,300 miles from Austin, Texas, on foot walking from Austin, Texas, all the way to Washington, D.C., to model their teachings, their belief, to model compassion, to model mindfulness, to model and to promote national unity, to try to foster healing. How many of you are in favor of healing our world today? Healing our world, right? But where does it begin? It begins with us. And it begins with us, each one of us, doing whatever is right for us to do. I'm not here to tell you what's right for you to do. I don't know what's right for you to do. But I know that in your practice of prayer and meditation, your practice of listening, you will get what is right for you to do. It may surprise you, and you may want to argue with it for a moment or two, but it won't let you go until you actually do it, whatever that it is for you. One of the things I'm appreciating as I listen to Cory Booker's book on Stand is that while he is writing about these very noble virtues, ones that I think we all want to strive to embody more fully and completely, he also speaks historically of beautiful, inspiring examples of those who, against all odds, modeled these virtues. And then he brings it to a very practical place of showing what each one of us can do and giving simple examples of things that people can do that can shift the energy, that can shift the dynamics. And what's beautiful is what you are called to do and what you are equipped to do and what you care about doing may not be the same things that I am called to do. But if each one of us does what is ours to do, that will make a tremendous difference. I've written in my notes, peace is an ultimate disruptor. We often think of chaos as the thing that disrupts our lives, but peace is actually a great disruptor of the status quo. When we are a peaceful presence in an anxious environment, when we are a peaceful presence in a frightening situation, we are disrupting the status quo of that situation. We are modeling a different way of being, and in the modeling of that different way of being, we have the potential to inspire another to do the same. It's a little bit like imagining ourselves being a human tuning fork for peace. You all know how a tuning fork works, right? You strike a tuning fork, and what does it do if there's another tuning fork nearby? It's going to pick up and start to vibrate in the same way. Have you not had the experience, at least on one occasion in your life, where you have walked into a room or walked into a situation where you knew there was tension in that situation, and you embodied peace, and you spoke a word of peace, you offered a blessing of peace, and that situation began to shift? Have you not had that experience? I imagine most, if not all of you have. And so in our practice, I think we are invited not only to embody peace, but to actually speak it, to actually be the ones that have the courage to speak honestly and lovingly and kindly and truthfully, whether it's with our neighbor, our coworker, a boss, or anybody else, to be that tuning fork for peace, to be that tuning fork for truth. To me, this is applied spirituality. The toughest kind of spirituality. Any one of us can get degrees in spirituality, integral spirituality, in world religions, and all that is well and good. But that lives here. And what our personal lives need, and what I believe our collective human family needs, is applied spirituality. Not religion. Don't get me on that. Not religion, but applied spirituality. And applied spirituality is recognizing that our life is our laboratory. It is a place that we are called to practice. Remember that line in the song, "Peace is the reason we're here today"? No accident. We've been called by name, called down to lay down our lives, stand up for greater good, and surrender to the peace we choose today. So the peace that we're invited to practice and to stand for is a peace that refuses to be baited by hate. And there's a lot of baiting going on around us, I think. But the peace that we're committed to is the kind of peace that will, in time, move the world and not be baited or tricked into hatred. And as we prepare for Easter this next Sunday, we'll be looking at the lives of master teachers, starting with Jesus, and looking at the technologies of consciousness that these teachers have left us as a gift to transform our individual lives and to also be about helping to make our greater collective world a better place. If you're familiar with the Easter story, you know that it is said that on the cross, Jesus looked out and said, "Father, forgive them. They know not what they do." We are not called to have to do that, but we are called to look with forgiving eyes to the world around us and turn within and ask, what is ours to do? You'll have an answer, and I support you in whatever that is. Namaste.